and
Thank you.
supporting other CSA survivors. And we met months ago as part of the Brave movement. But again, that's another story. But thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And I'm in Cambridge at the moment in England. And it's in the afternoon. And I guess for you, it's the morning. So good morning. You're about to have your breakfast and I'm about to have my tea. So there we are.
Actually, we're almost due for lunch right now.
Oh, you do for lunch? Okay, well, I won't keep you from your lunch very long. So what can I tell you?
So sorry, right off the bat, well, I guess start off with your story. How did to start off with your film that you're putting out, Groomed? How did all this sort of take place? And if you'd like to share that with us.
Well, okay, let's go right back to the beginning. Over 50 years ago,
Okay.
I was a schoolboy at a state school in England, a perfectly ordinary state school, not what we call a public school, because a public school for us is a private school. It's very crazy. Just an ordinary state school, and I was 9 years old, and I was abused by my class teacher for about a year. I can't remember whether it was a daily basis or on a weekly basis, but very regularly. And on the days when he didn't abuse me, he terrorized me because I was terrified that he might. And the abuse ended because I was moving to another school, and he asked me to go with him to his flat, and I was terrified. And on that occasion, really, he dumped me. I think he dumped me for a younger model. I think age 10, I was too old. He wanted an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old. And that experience of being rejected and told to go away, I think was as traumatic as the abuse. And I, of course, pretended to myself that nothing had happened. He had groomed my mother as much as me. My mother thought he was a wonderful teacher and kept telling me. I then discovered that I was queer at a time when it was still illegal. And the shame of the abuse got incredibly enmeshed with the shame of being gay. And it made me suppress my body, I think, completely for about 15 years. I allowed nobody to touch me, apart from maybe a handshake or a kiss on the cheek. And my survival mechanism really was that I retreated into my imagination, and particularly into the theatre. And I had a model theatre with little puppet figures. And then when I went to university, I did lots of plays. In fact, I really only felt safe when I was doing plays. I suppose when I was acting, being somebody else. And eventually I decided that that's what I wanted to do for my career. And I became passionately committed to becoming a theatre director, which I think was easier for me than being an actor, because an actor meant exposing myself. It might even mean taking my clothes off in the dressing room, and I simply couldn't. And then I was a boy who used to, in the middle of summer, used to wear thick sweaters so as not to show my body. And I went into the theatre, which of course was a wonderfully accepting place. But I still didn't tell anybody about the abuse. Not until really until my late 30s. So kind of between 20 and 30 years after the event. And I went into therapy and started to talk about my sexuality, and eventually, after some years, about the abuse. But I never told anybody else. It was totally private. And then eventually I reached the age of 60, and I decided I was by then the artistic director of quite a major theatre company in Britain, in a place called Southampton, which is where the Lioness go, where the Queen Mary goes across to New York. And I decided to leave that theatre because I thought, I've got to do something else. It's time for a younger director. They were getting a new building. And almost the second I left, I knew I had to write this play. I knew that I had to bring the two sides of my life together. My life as a theatre director and a theatre maker, and to a certain extent as a theatre writer, and my life as a survivor in slow recovery all my life. And I knew that I had to bring them together. And of course, for me, the natural way to express that was through theatre. And I wrote a testimony, a dramatized testimony. It took me several years to write it. And eventually I did it for 3 friends in a room. And they fell off their chairs and said, oh my God, why have you never told us this? Why, we've known you for 20, 25 years, some of them. Why have you never told us this? And one of a girl, an actor, she said to me, oh my God, that explains so much. When we try to get really close to you, we can't. And then I showed it to a casting director who said, you have to do this and you have to perform it because this is your testimony. And we did it at the Brighton Festival, which is like sort of miniature version of the Edinburgh Festival. We did it on the Fringe, and to my astonishment, we won 3 awards, including for outstanding theatre. And from there, we took it to the Soho Theatre in London, where it ran for a month, and we got nominated for another award. And then I was sort of in a state of complete bewilderment by all this, because I just thought I'd written something as a kind of cathartic exercise. And then a man saw it and said he wanted to film it. Low budget, but he's a very distinguished film producer. He's called David Orkin, and he produced films like 4 Weddings and a Funeral and Train Spotting and The Madness of King George. And he filmed it, very low budget, but we did it over 3 days, and we filmed it in a primary school. And that is the film which was completed just before the pandemic. So we launched it in London. We had 2 screenings in London. And then, of course, everything shut down. So in a sense, we were stymied. And now we're starting it up again. And we've got a screening in London on June the 15th. I'll say that again at the end, in case any of you know people in London. And also we have put it out on the Soho Theatre, which was the theatre where we staged the play. They have put it on their live streaming, and you can see it. You can download that streaming program. And it'll cost you £5, which I think is about $8 Canadian. And if any of you are seriously hard up, contact Stuart or Maria, because there is a free code. Believe me, nobody's getting rich on this. I'm telling you, this is a non-profit make, but there were a lot of costs in making the film that we have to finish. And I just hope you will all watch it. It's 50 minutes long, so it's not a long evening or morning. There is nothing offensive in the film. There is nothing sort of outrageous in the film. There is quite a lot of raw emotion. And what has pleased me enormously is that lots of people, men and women, many of whom have had no experience of abuse at all, have said, oh my God, you've told my story. Because we all have wounds. Everybody has a wound from which we have to heal. And the film is above all about the way starting to heal, I think. I hope so. And it's not just about me. I tell 2 other stories in it. I tell the story of the Japanese, the members of the Japanese army who at the end of the Second World War were stationed on small islands in the Philippines, and they refused to leave their posts because they didn't believe the war was over. And 1 or 2 of them in particular stayed for 29 years, afraid and determined to defend themselves, even though the danger had long since passed. And it was an American psychiatrist called Molly Young Brown who made the connection between those loyal soldiers, those loyal Japanese soldiers, and the loyal soldiers that we all have in our brains, who defend ourselves from danger long after that danger is over. And I think this is particularly true for survivors or anyone who's been through trauma. there are patterns established in our minds, patterns of defense and of self-protection that we cling to when actually maybe we don't need to. And that's certainly been true in my life. I found it very difficult to form relationships because I'm always frightened of what's going to happen next, or do I deserve it? I've got too much shame. And when I heard this comparison, that made a great deal of sense to me. So I've included his story in the film. And also we have saxophone music in the film. And I included the story of Adolf Sax, who is the founder, the man who invented the saxophone, who had a very particular early childhood, which I'm not going to tell you because I want you to see the film. So I did that partly so that it wouldn't just be about me, but also so that occasionally there would be saxophone music, and that would give me time to remember what the next line was when I was doing the performance. So
That's a good question.
yeah.
Yeah, it all kind of relates to, what brought you up to the film. And one thing you mentioned that back in your 30s, for example, I'm going to start from there. You talked about about coming forward with your story, and then I'm moving forward now to today, and I guess with that question that it's kind of there, and it's kind of between both statements, is how do you find? I know as a survivor myself, I mean, this is stuff not easy to talk about. Now, being a male and being gay, as you pointed out, we have all kinds of barriers that hold us back from coming forward and talking about this. So how do you think that has changed from when you were 30 to where you are now in regards to telling your story? And of course, we have barriers which are always probably be with us regardless. Whether we carry the shame or not, we're always going to hold back in regards to what happened to us. And that's all because, well, I can't speak for you, but I can speak for myself on how I was brought up. So we don't talk about this stuff. We don't come forward with this stuff. We don't, because, it's riddled in shame. I mean, it still is with me to a certain degree, but now I don't care anymore because I just want to say it and get it over with and let's deal with it. But how is that for you in this time of transition from when you were 30 to now? You put it into a film, and here I'm in. Well, pardon the way I put this, the way I say this, but now I'm in your face. You need to listen to me, or I invite you to listen to me, to my story and other stories that brought me here today. So how is that transition from then till now? How's that feel, or does it give you hope? Does it give you feel? Does it make you feel that, yeah, my story is valid now, and you're listening to me, and now I've gone this far to put it out there? So what is it like?
Well, I think it's good and bad. I grew up when being gay or queer, as we said then, was illegal. And the shame around that, my internalized homophobia was catastrophic. I mean, this was before there was any gay liberation. This was before there were any gay role models. I remember my mother saying to me when I was about 15, "You're not like that, are you?" And I realized it wasn't a question, it was an instruction. And when I went into therapy when I was about 35, I didn't go in about the abuse. I remember saying, I need help about being gay, because I was still riddled with shame. And body shame particularly. For me, it was always about the ugliness and the undesirability of my body. I used to wait sometimes until it got dark before I went out. I mean, it was horrible. And of course, the other side of my life functioned because I was working as a successful theatre director. And when I was in that role or in the rehearsal room, I was absolutely fine. And this is something I've gradually understood, particularly reading people like Janina Fisher, who talks about parts theory, that for a lot of survivors, there is a part that can function perfectly normally, that can come on a Zoom and talk intelligently and articulately. And there is a part that can be full of fear, shame, anger, grief, whatever. And I think part of the healing is in understanding that mechanism and not blaming myself for it, and understanding it. So that the difference now, I suppose, is I carry a lot of grief. I carry a lot of grief for the pain of what was done to me as a boy and the effects that had on me in my adolescence, particularly the fact that I was so repressed and I rejected genuine attempts by other people, men and women, to love me, and I pushed them away because I was too frightened. So I have a sense of loss about that. And I have a sense of loss about missed opportunities in that sense. But I also have quite a lot of rage. I have rage that when I first came forward to the local education authorities, to the school, and told them about what had happened to me, they were frankly dismissive and did not really take me seriously and pretended they'd look for records when in fact they hadn't. And that can fill me with incandescent rage in the middle of the night. And on the other side, I suppose, I look at the film. I've hardly watched the film because I've no reason to watch the film. I made the film. I probably watch it no more than twice a year. But when I watch it, I'm always surprised by it because I hear myself saying things. I think, oh my God, did I write that? Oh my God, that's so true, but I don't remember writing it. So in a sense, I watch it rather in the way that you may watch it, as though it's entirely new to me. And of course, I'm partly proud that I made it because I think it was cathartic. I'm partly embarrassed because I think, oh my God, why did I do this? At least I don't think it's self-indulgent. My one fear was that it would be self-indulgent, and people tell me it's not. And I am hopeful. I can only be hopeful in the face of things like the Brave movement, and that I am part of that movement in a lateral way. I've just come in from the side because I am talking about this stuff, and I take this stuff of child sexual violence, I take it very seriously, and I have told the truth. That was what I set out to do. And you know, when I get depressed in the night, I say to myself, well, at least I have told the truth, which will make it perhaps easier for other people to tell their truth. Because although we all have similarities in our experiences, none of us are exactly alike. All of us deal with those experiences in our own particular way. And I applaud the ingenuity and the courage. I mean, every single person who's on this Zoom at this moment has the courage to be on a Zoom that is talking about child sexual violence. And I believe that is courageous, because not only are you looking at me, but as you're looking at me, you must also be looking at yourself. And I think there's nothing more scary than looking at myself. It's scary. And making the film was quite a scary thing to do. It was helped by the fact there was a group of people. There was a crew. At one point, I looked up from behind the camera and there were 10 people looking at me. And I thought, oh my God, I can't mess up now. I've got to do my stuff. I've got to do it. All these people are here and trusting that I'm going to do it. And that was very encouraging. The focus puller, she was a young Venezuelan girl. And at one point she apologized. She said, I'm sorry, I was not doing my work because I was crying. And I thought, oh my God, what a wonderful thing to say to me. It was a great affirmation that what I was doing was valuable to her. I've no idea if she was a survivor or not.
So this, in a sense, like this is what I like about being an advocate for myself. And obviously I can't speak for you, but within this film that you've done and all the work you've done for yourself all through the years to doing this, does this feel to you like this has purpose? And I believe this will help other survivors. There's no doubt about that. But do you feel like, you know, when we talk about grief and we talk about loss and that sort of thing individually as a person, do you feel that this is giving you, not to choose, I don't know if you ever question it or anything like that, and I certainly hope you don't take this the wrong way, but do you feel now that you've done this film, with all the work you've done within yourself, do you feel that this film gives you more purpose to keep fighting for what you're fighting about now?
Yeah, I think it does. But let me make one thing very clear. I did not set out to make this play and then this film with any sense of crusading. None at all. I was not an activist. I was not thinking, I'll show them, I'll do this. Absolutely not. I did this as part of my own healing process. I mean, the first time I read the script was to my therapist. And he was a bit astonished, actually, and said, oh, my God, you've got to do it. And then there was a long pause. And he said, well, I don't think it's West End material, which was a very sweet thing to say, really. But then, and when we first did it at the Brighton Festival, the stage manager, who was a young woman, every night I said to her, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? This is so self-indulgent. What am I doing this for? And she said, no, it's not. You're doing this because you're a man and you're showing emotion. And so shut the fuck up and get on and do it. And then I think when David Orkin, the producer, said, let's film this, that was when I thought, oh my God, they're really taking me seriously. And then when when it was shown and it's been seen, not by thousands of people, but certainly by hundreds of people, not just in Britain, but in France, because there's a version with French subtitles. And there is a version with German subtitles that will come out next week, I hope. But also in America and now in Canada, I suddenly realized the film has a use and has a function. And I'm not going to define what that is, because I suspect it'll be different for everybody who watches it. But it seems that most people who watch it identify with at least one or two parts of it. And I think that has given me, I suppose it's given me a sense of commitment sufficient to join the Zooms of the Brave movement and to become involved in the UK, the English, the British, the Scottish, and maybe even the Irish, because I'm half Irish, approach to the Sherpas and to the G7 summit delegation to try and put this stuff on the agenda. Because I do feel quite passionate about some of the demands of the Brave movement. I do think it's great that the Brave movement has stepped forward, and I was not part of it at the beginning. Absolutely not. I'm very much way over there at the side, but I'm just sort of joining in and offering my film as part of that joining in. But I'm not afraid to speak up now. I'm still scared of being sued if I say anything that's libelous or inflammatory about people. But I think the man who abused me, I think he's dead. I rather hope he's not, and that he comes forward and accuses me. That would be great, so I could meet him and punch him on the nose.
With your permission, can we show a trailer right now?
Yeah, of course you can. Of course you can.
Maria, please, whenever you're ready. Folks, stay tuned. We're about to show you Patrick Sandford's trailer.
And one ordinary day, not so very long ago, I am driving along the south coast with my mother to see the Brighton Pavilion. She tells me she's been thinking about modern education. But you had wonderful teachers, didn't you, Paddy? Mr. Moorby was a wonderful teacher. He taught you handwriting. Do you remember? We are passing the turn-off for Tangmere. There's a sign to the military aerodrome, and really, I have no choice. Gently, I speak to my mother the secret. She is silent for 11 miles, and then she almost whispers. You had a lot to cope with when you were little. That is all. And it is enough. But the Brighton Pavilion has a hard job working its magic. Yes, bring on the happy music. Maybe I can leave it all behind. This is what was done to me. It is not who I am. I am not the paper cutout of a man. And you want the happy ending, don't you? Everyone does.
Wow, that's brilliant, Patrick. Thank you. That's
Well, that-
Groomed.
Yeah, that's buffering there a little bit. Of course, when you watch it, it won't buffer like that. And that is a little gentle bit. That's a bit where I tell my mother. And it's quite, I hope it's quite tender. There are other bits where I am much more angry. And,
No doubt. This is not easy stuff to talk about at all.
No,
And-
I mean, I think it's important to show the whole range of emotions in there. But what's interesting is you get a little bit of hint there of the, I think you probably know, maybe you notice at the end there's a little model theatre, and the image of the theatre goes right the way through, and the notion that creativity and that art and that writing, that poetry, that music, that drama can be a healing for survivors is something I believe in very passionately. Just as I believe sport can be, or any passion, any activity that people are particularly interested in. Science, I mean, I know a survivor who's a scientist, and he is passionate about his work, and that passion has given him a sense of purpose.
And I love the sax, as you talked about, how you've got it incorporated in that. And the sax is one of my favorite instruments of all time. And I love how you've got that in there. And one thing about the sax is I've noticed over the years, sort of listening to blues and jazz and many different venues with jazz, with sax, you can really bring in emotion with the sax. And that's why I like it as one of my favorite instruments.
I think, yeah, the reason I knew it, as soon as I wrote it, and we said we would do it, I knew I wanted a saxophone. I knew I wanted a saxophone. And I say it at the very, very beginning of the film. I love the saxophone. It is so unafraid of being present. With a saxophone, you can't hide. The saxophone can't hide. And the other thing the saxophone can't do, I don't think you can be depressing with a saxophone.
No.
You can be melancholic. You can be bittersweet, you can be sad, but that's quite different from being depressive. And I wanted a saxophone that would keep us buoyant, really, because the thing has to be buoyant. There's no point in making a film that was going to reduce everybody to wretchedness. I just didn't want to do that. And that's one of the reasons it's so short, because it moves along really quite fast. In fact, when we made the film, I said to the director, are we going quick enough here? And she says, oh, yes, Patrick, we're going fast enough. But when I watch it, I think, get a move on, get a move on, get a move on. But that's just because I know it so well.
So you didn't have to go back and retake anything. It was done pretty quickly.
Oh, we had to do some retakes. We had a wonderful cameraman, a BAFTA award-winning cameraman who did it, the whole job for nothing. God bless him, South African. And he was amazing. He said to me at the beginning, Patrick, just talk to the camera as though you're talking to me. And every now and then he would stop and say, oh, there's a problem with the sound, or there's got an angle not quite right. And then once he said to me, Patrick, you have to stop wobbling your head. You have to stop wobbling your head. You can't expect me to film you if you wobble your head. So he was giving me very basic instructions as to a performer, and my God, I welcomed them, because I was a complete novice. I'd never done any kind of camera work like that before. So we did some retakes, but there wasn't a lot of time. I had to concentrate very hard, but it was easier because I knew the material, because we'd done the play. You know, we'd done probably 50 performances of the play by then. And although the script is shorter in the film, because, you know, the film uses imagery so much more, and there are images from the classroom. There's some beautiful children's paintings used in the film that are much more interesting to look at than my face sometimes. So it was a crushed 3 days, but it was very exciting. I was 66 years old. I thought, my God, I'm 66 years old. I'm supposed to be retiring. And here I am doing something I've never done before in my life, and telling a truth publicly that I've never told before in my life. And the answer is better late than never. It's never too late to recover. And I haven't finished yet. You know, the notion that I've made this film so I'm all sorted is just not the case. I've taken a big step forward in my recovery, but there's still more to do.
Now I think that's really, really awesome. And what I've seen over the years, and actually I mentioned advocacy, and I definitely get what you're saying in regards to why you want to present this, and it's for your own healing. And I can actually kind of reflect in my own experiences and some of the things I've done. It's not so much that I want to, yes, I'm an advocate, but at the same time, it's my voice. And like yourself, over the years, I've had to learn to use my voice, and in doing so, it's been my self-healing. So it's not so much just for everybody else. A lot of times, it is just for me, as you
Yeah.
pointed out for yourself.
Totally.
And I think a lot of people don't understand that or don't see that, because, you know, with men like women, we tend to we hold back our pain and our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions from our experiences, which we don't really have. Well, we have shame that's behind that, so we don't talk about it. So this is a way of expressing what we've done, and Patrick brilliantly done this. I can't wait to see the whole thing groomed when you do finally release it. I'm really, really looking forward to that. So I have a question in this. So what from your trailers that you've done, just in the UK example, I mean, internationally is important as well, but what kind of responses are you getting from this? Are you getting lots of support from all around the UK from this so far? I know you say hundreds, but I'd like to think thousands eventually.
Well, I want to say the responses have been 100% positive. That is not the case. There have been one person in particular objected very strongly, because there is a point in the play where I allow the teacher, who was the man who abused me, I allow him to make his case to the camera. Now, obviously, this is not the actual teacher. This is my imagination of what he would say, but I have taken that from conversations I have had with actual pedophiles, not many. And there was a member of an audience who said he did not think I should have done that he thought it was disgraceful that I should give the perpetrator a voice. And he was very, very angry. And it's not whether I understand his anger or not. I simply accept that he was feeling angry. But I felt it was important not to defend the perpetrator, absolutely not to defend the perpetrator. But I believe that we will only stop the crime that is child sexual violence if we understand what causes it, if we understand the motivations of the perpetrator. That does not say we condone them. We don't. But I don't think it's black and white. I think it's very, very dark gray and almost white. And I say in the film at one point, I hated the abuse. It was painful. It hurted me. I hated it. It hurt me. But I liked the attention. I liked being the teacher's special boy. I liked being made top of the class every week. And I would be lying if I said I didn't like that. I don't think I understood the mechanism of grooming. That's why I call it groomed. I don't think I mean, I'm sure I wasn't the cleverest boy in the class. I'm sure I wasn't. But at the time, of course, all I heard was, oh, you're so clever. Your mother will be so proud of you. And I think that for a lot of survivors, it's not a black and white case. I think if it was, it would be much easier for some survivors to get out of the enmeshing that they have with their abusers. But, I wanted the film not to have any easy answers. I asked the questions. And I think people have appreciated that I'm not saying, oh, this is how you understand it and this is how we solve it. I am giving my particular truth. And I'm not saying this is your truth. Your truth may meet mine in some places and it may not. But so far, people have really, really appreciated it. I don't think enjoyed is the right word. And if anybody wants to write to me, if you write to Maria or to Stuart, they will forward the email to me. It would be great to hear from people.
Definitely will do that. Thank you. I have a question from one of our listeners here, from Richard, pointing out he purchased a film and he's going to watch it later on today, and he has a question to you, whether it has been picked at any of the Canadian film festivals.
The answer to that question is no, because I don't know what the Canadian film festivals are, and therefore I don't know where to submit it. But Richard, if you would like to email me and tell me where you think I should send it, I will send it straight away. Particularly if you watch it and vouch for it, maybe you could submit it on my behalf. Listen, we can talk about it. It was shown at the Port Townsend Film Festival in Washington State in the US in the middle of the pandemic, and was well received. I think the festival decided to screen it. They were a little bit, I think they were a bit wary, and they gave it quite a strong warning, you know, this is strong stuff, not for the faint-hearted, which I felt was a bit unfortunate, because actually there's nothing disturbing in the film apart from the subject matter. But that's the only festival at which it's been seen, because I haven't submitted it to festivals. But your encouragement will help me. There we are, Fringe. That's great. Thank you, Fringe Toronto. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you. Well, maybe you can watch the film and talk to Stuart and Maria, and we could submit it together. That would be, because it would be wonderful to have a sponsor in Canada.
Yeah, I can't see why that's not even possible. Actually, it's not impossible. What do you think, Maria?
I think that's definitely doable.
Yeah, you know, and one thing I like about this whole thing, it's been a really, really crazy, wild year. And what I mean by that, especially the last half of it, is one of the great privileges, honors rather, I should say, is I've been able to meet Patrick. And many other people from around the G7, and I'm going to use the word G7 and G20 and other people around the world, all because of the Brave movement. And you know, we've gotten together for whatever reason, we've connected, and here we are talking today about Groomed. And I think this is really, really important all around for people to see this sort of thing. And I just want to say I can't wait to see the full film in its full context moving forward. So do you think that moving forward, now that you've done this, do you believe in change? Do you see change coming, Patrick? I believe there is. I mean, your film is just part of this, but even with our initiative, what we're doing with the Brave movement and moving forward, do you see that people are actually going to start listening to us now and not turning their heads away and doing whatever they do, but we're going to be listened to now? Do you actually believe that's going to happen to a greater extent now? I do, but what do you think?
Well, it would of course be very easy to say, yes, I believe it. It's going to happen. We're going to do it. And of course, I hope that. But I am, you know, I'm wary. We were told by the Home Office in England, yes, you will be on the agenda. But bear in mind, the agenda at the G7 is going to be, you know, they're going to start with the Ukraine, and then they're going to go on to climate change. And anything else is going to be right down at number 6, 7, 8. And I think the other thing I think that there is, certainly in Britain, there is a lot of lip service. There is a lot of people saying, oh, yes, of course, child sexual violence is a terrible thing. Yes, we've got to do something about it. And then they move on to other subjects. So I think we may have to fight quite hard. I think the Brave movement is fantastic and it's a wonderful start. But I don't think it's going to be plain sailing. I think there will be people who resist. It's terribly easy for people to say, oh, but that happened to you a long time ago. Surely you've got over it by now. Because they just don't understand the fundamentals of the cause and effect of child sexual violence, that the core of the child is damaged. And that requires more healing than just a sticking plaster and a spoonful of sugar. So I am optimistic, but I am far from certain. I think it will take a lot of fighting.
Yeah, I agree. It will take a lot of fighting, and now with Ukraine and of course the climate, which kind of brings me back to this. We're talking about Ukraine, and Ukraine was even more reason now, because not just the war in itself, again, is in the topic, but what about the women and children that are going to be trafficked, right? This is still part of it. You can't escape what we're fighting for and what we're doing. And again, this could be another conversation we could have moving on in the future, which I'm sure it will be. But this one little piece here, what really stands out to me is that I just pointed out. Yes, they're going to talk about that, but what about all the trafficking that's going to happen, which is already happening to a degree, not just, I can't say specifically here in the West, but in EU, it's already started, which is really, really horrible. So, I hope they don't push us back too much, and they need to recognize that, even with the war on Ukraine, you're going to need support from people like us in order to help you through this process, and all the other different organizations, not just in the EU, but around the world, because Ukrainians are going to be displaced all around the world because they're pushed out of their own home, obviously from the war. So I don't think we're done. The world is not done with us yet. We're only just getting going. And the point I made about Ukraine is just an example of what's going on. And so we're not going to be forgotten, not going to be pushed aside, regardless. So I was just curious what your thoughts were on that. And we are coming close to our time, and we lost Maria. We've been having crazy, stupid internet issues today, and webinar issues today. So we're hoping that by tomorrow, or our last broadcast today, which is 2:30, we'll have all this sorted out. But Patrick, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here today.
Let me just say this. I would like to say this because I think this is a public health issue. We have had a global pandemic. The Brave movement is a global movement because child sexual exploitation, child sexual violence is a global issue. More children under the age of 18 are affected by child sexual violation in the United Kingdom than by COVID. And I believe we need a public health campaign that is, that is as valued, and that means that as much money is spent on it as we spent on discovering vaccines for COVID. And it's pointless for people to pretend otherwise. And the only way we will stop it is by researching the causes of it and finding how to prevent it happening in the first place. Simply increasing the prison sentences is not enough, because so few convictions ever take place, and so few of those people who are accused actually get convicted. It is a worldwide pandemic, and it exists in reality, and it exists online. And we need as much effort spent in reality as we do in closing down online avenues for child pornography. It's got to be a global war on this issue. That is my feeling about it.
I agree, absolutely. And there's not only that, there's not just Ukraine, as an example. There's other countries. I can go Afghanistan as our most recent example, which again, like a lot of people do not see. And I'm going to make my statement really, really short here, but there's other countries that have this problem as well. And I just use Afghanistan as the most recent memory of this kind of stuff that's happening. And I'm talking about war-torn countries. But Patrick, today, I really want to thank you. Patrick Sandford has been our guest here today on our 12th annual Transforming Trauma Conference. He has just being released, a film called Groomed.
You've got it. You've got it.
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, so we've got it. It's already out there. So
can I just say one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Make sure you type in the link really clearly. And when you get to the Soho Theatre website, you have to register. You have to put your name and your inside leg measurement and your date, whatever. You have to put that in order to watch the film. But once you've done that and got the film, you can easily delete that if you don't want your material to be on there. I just hope you all appreciate it, and please let me know and argue with me. Tell me what I've missed out. It'd be great to hear that. And I hope one day I'll be in Toronto to see you all. That would be really, really good.
Yeah, thank you. And vice versa. I hope to be in the UK in the near future as well, because with the connections of the Brave Move that I've met, I have even more reason to go over there and help me to get back here, because I'll probably just want to stay there. But nevertheless, thank you, Patrick. Actually, Maria, is there anything else you want to add to today before we sign off?
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you, Patrick, again, for being here, sharing your wisdom with us. I did have a comment from social media. Patrick, thank you for your bravery and imaginative, thought-provoking endeavor. Well done connecting grooming, trauma, shame, grief, loss, rage, and healing.
And there are also French subtitles for French Canadians.
And German too, right?
Not the Germans will be on a different site. The Germans
Okay.
will be on a Vimeo site, and that won't be till the end of next week. But the one with the English and French you have at the moment, and I think Maria's going to send you all the link.
Well, that's great. Fantastic. Thank you ever so much, Patrick.
Enjoy the
And,
rest of the conference. Have a great time.
Thank you. And I'll probably see you Wednesday if you're at the meeting.
I will be. I will be.
Take care. Bye now,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Everybody
Enjoy
for
your
joining in.
lunch.
Yes.